Goes out to the right, caught over the middle, and into.
He's at the 45. Are you kidding? Oh, he's gonna go!
Oh, Brady gets hit, the ball is out. Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're on the page, you can check the link tree in our bio out. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on: IG, TikTok, Facebook, all those great places. But the best place to get involved with each and every one of our shows, and if you want to be interactive throughout this show tonight, head on over to the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help us reach our goal of 700 subscribers on the DSM YouTube channel. And that is the best place to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown. My man, what's going on?
Not much, man. Just having a nice Thursday. It's been a little rainy and dark all day here in Philly, and so
December 22nd.
Getting the work in. Got my work day over with, and now we lock in on tonight. Right, not a ton of NBA games on tonight. Only 2 NBA games, so we are fully focused on this Thursday night football affair.
And maybe that's a good thing, right? Because on a night like this is a night to just come away with a profitable night. So we'll get into our best bets for this one later on in the show. We're going to break down this Jags-Jets game as best we can. So many playoff implications within this one in terms of wild card and the Jaguars possibly having a chance to come back and win the AFC South with now Ryan Tannehill going down in Tennessee. We're going to give our updated power rankings heading into the Week 16 slate, as well as, I guess, talk about this Monday Night Football matchup to start off the show, Scotty. Not much to really get into outside of one half of this game. So the Green Bay Packers come away with a win at home in Lambeau over Baker Mayfield and the LA Rams. Rams season obviously over, and the Packers season stays alive for the time being. They need to win out. If they win out, there's a couple different scenarios where the Seahawks could lose one and they get in. The Giants could lose 2 and they get in. A couple different scenarios, but ultimately Green Bay would have to win all 3 of their final 3 games of the season. If you had to put a percentage on the Packers making the postseason, what percentage would you give me?
I think I would probably go less than 10% chance for them to make it. There's just some teams in the race right now that I like a lot more. You look at the New York Giants, all they have to do is get one more win and they lock it up, right? They lock up their position in the playoffs, which I know it's Minnesota this weekend. I don't know how you feel about that game. That one's tricky, right? I mean, Minnesota is kind of played down, go down 33-0. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes nonetheless. They have Indianapolis and then Philly afterwards. So Indianapolis, that would be a good time for them to get their W to secure their spot. Washington Commanders, they play San Fran this weekend. That's a loss. They play Cleveland next weekend. Maybe a win. I mean, they can beat Cleveland. And then Dallas to finish the season. Seattle is a team that maybe I would say Green Bay over Seattle, maybe. Maybe I give them the leeway over that team. They play Kansas City, the New York Jets, and then the LA Rams to close the season. But the main thing here is Detroit, and I think Detroit has the much better chance, obviously, than the Green Bay Packers here. But they play the Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears, and then all they have to do is beat the Green Bay Packers on that final week. And they secure their trip to the playoffs. So while I look at all these other teams, I would say, the New York Giants will probably lose to the Minnesota Vikings. The Washington Commanders will probably lose to the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle will most likely lose to Kansas City, right? But then you get to Detroit, and that's where the factor comes in. I think Detroit could win out here. And Green Bay, you look at their schedule, they play Miami, Minnesota, Detroit. That's 3 playoff teams. So it's very tight window for Green Bay. And it's a lot late, right? A little too late you could say, for the Green Bay Packers, because it looks like Aaron Rodgers is finally trusting his receivers, getting them involved. The run game's getting going with A.J. Dillon. But it's a little too late, right, for the Green Bay Packers here. I'd say under 10%.
Yeah, I'll give them a 0% chance. None. They have no chance to make the playoffs. Even if their schedule was a little bit easier, they are not making the playoffs with all the help they need. And we laid it out, right? They have to finish perfect. They have to go 3-0. And I hate to break it to you, they are losing Sunday. They are losing on Christmas. They're going home unhappy and eliminated from the postseason. Tua and the Dolphins have lost 3 straight. That is not continuing on Sunday on Christmas. That offense is too high powered for this Green Bay Packer team. It's like them and the Bucs are 2 very similar situations in terms of teams we thought would be atop of this conference with 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league that have greatly underperformed, and they give one win that we give them an inch, and now people want to take a mile with it. Oh, they beat the. Congratulations, bro. You beat the Rams 24-12 on Monday Night Football. Like I don't know what to tell you. This does not mean your season's turned around. And the other thing, you mentioned too little too late. The biggest part of this whole conversation, Scotty, is what is the common denominator between all of the teams we laid out ahead of Green Bay in their way? They've all beaten the Packers already. Washington beat the Packers.
Yep.
The Giants beat the Packers. The Lions beat the Packers, and they play them in the last week of the season. It might not even mean anything, right? So you're looking, you're scratching and clawing for a reason to let them in. They've had their chances. You had your chance back in October, back in November to beat these teams. Aaron Rodgers throws 3 interceptions, 2 on the goal line to Detroit Lions to lose. There's an interception late against the Commanders to lose that game. Like, you've had so many opportunities to not be in this position. So it definitely is too little too late. Not to mention, like, the biggest part is the schedule. They might lose all 3 of those games, let alone
they could
2 when they need to go 3-0. So I'm putting the number at 0. I don't think the Packers have a shot in hell of making the postseason this year.
Never count out A-Rod, right?
I'm counting them out. Normally, I would say the same thing. Normally, I would be on board with you, and we're getting to the point where we're looking at the other goat and starting to count him out as well, right? When you look at Tom Brady and that performance on Sunday against the Bengals, it wasn't the O-line. It wasn't a drop pass. It wasn't a running back fumble. No, these were self-inflicted wounds and turnovers by him himself, which leads me to believe he's not the Tom Brady that we've been accustomed to in the past. Same thing here with Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, man, anything else within this game? The Rams are a dumpster fire.
Yeah, they're
the
trash.
Injuries are just obviously have been too much. 3 wins on the season. They're cooked. There's not much to say there. I know we talked last week about Baker's miraculous 90-yard drive to come back and beat the Raiders. But he was Baker again, right, on Monday night. Scotty, I'm not kidding you when I watched
Raiders gonna Raider
early in the game.
Baker gonna Baker.
Climb the pocket and literally look over his shoulder to see if there was pressure coming and then take a sack a half second later. Like, it was an ugly game to watch. Like, I know we've been happy with a lot of these primetime football games we've watched. And last Thursday, I think you and I were like, when we talked about Seattle and 49ers, we're like, all right, Geno versus Brock Purdy. I know it's not a great quarterback matchup, but playoff implications, like, this is a nice primetime game late on in the season. Monday night was the polar opposite of something
you're talking about. You're talking about Pro Bowl quarterback Geno.
Pro Bowl
Smith.
Geno. Yeah, man. and potential Super Bowl champion Brock Purdy, right?
Yeah. Congrats to Geno, though, man. Well deserved. He definitely debunked everything that I thought about him coming into this season, right? So congrats to Geno, man.
Let's take a little detour here because we didn't discuss bringing this up, but we mentioned the Pro Bowl. Obviously, the Pro Bowl rosters are set, and the Eagles lead the league, obviously, with their 13-1 record with the most Pro Bowl selections, 17 in total. And what is it? 9 reserves and 8 active, 8 starters, right? When you look at Hassan Reddick and Darius Slay on the defensive side of things, and then offensively, you have Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. Actually, I believe Landon Dickerson is on that list as well as a starter.
He is, yeah. Landon Dickerson.
Crazy, right? Like that's the only word to describe it. When just crazy to think back on the journey this year. If we go back to August and we're getting ready for this year with all the question marks, and yeah, we were hopeful with the roster that Howie Roseman built. Nobody, I don't care if you are the biggest Eagle believer, they can't do no wrong in your eyes. Everything's sunshine and rainbows. Even that person didn't see 17 Pro Bowl selections, right? Like this is absurd. We're at the point where we're bitching and complaining that, James Bradbury didn't get it, isn't a starter, or Javon Hargrave. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. Javon Hargrave has 10 effing sacks.
They feel like snubs.
But like
snubs.
They already gave half the damn roster to Philly. So
they can't bring the whole team, right? Like that's what I tweeted out earlier, because I looked at it and I'm like, man, like Hargrave got snubbed. He leads defensive tackles in the NFC in sacks. CGJ got snubbed. He leads the league, or tied for the lead in interceptions. Like James Bradbury, obviously, we've seen all the numbers, supporting him as one of the best corners in the league. So, like, yeah, I did feel like they got snubbed. You can even take it to, like, Dallas Goedert, whose numbers are still up there with the top tight ends of the NFL, even though he's been out the last 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, it's been a crazy season. You can't ask for too much, right? No. But you could. There's an argument there for even more guys. What about the rest of the league? I know there was some talk about, like, Tua not making the Pro Bowl roster, but like it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. Like, I don't understand how you can be upset.
It's not just the level of competition and how they're playing for the last month or so. Tua has dropped off, and maybe that shouldn't play an overall factor on the entire season. But A, he's missed time this year. And B, he's lost 3 straight. So when you're looking at recency bias versus what the others have done recently, when you're looking at his injuries versus when the other guys have missed no time, I mean, he's most definitely the odd man out. Landon Dickerson, I guess, right? Like it had to be a little bit shocking and surprising as an Eagles fan. And I guess because we don't hear his name called, is a good thing. Right. But we take that for granted. So we don't really, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of his, of QB pressures and QB hits allowed and blocking percentage. And rush numbers. I don't know the statistics, offensive lineman to offensive lineman, but I'm assuming they're pretty damn good. And when we as Eagles fans don't really hear Landon Dickerson's number called on television, that's a good thing. So, he's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And, congrats to Landon Dickerson. That's another,
real, bro.
Kudos to Howie Roseman, right? Drafting Landon Dickerson
second
in
year,
that second round.
Second year.
Yeah, second year player, second round pick. And some of us questioned it, right? We didn't go overboard. I don't think we did as far as on Turf Talk. We didn't go overboard on questioning that Landon Dickerson pick.
No.
But it had some question marks, right? Injury history, stuff like that.
Well,
he's panned out so far.
And I think at the time he was drafted with the idea of replacing Jason Kelsey. And that's where a lot, I don't think a lot of Eagles fans envisioned him as being a starting guard. He played, he can play center and he could possibly be replacing Kelsey when he moves on. And it's turned out to be the polar opposite. Jordan Mailata wasn't even a reserve. Isaac Seumalo makes the reserve team. He's an effing unit. You know what he is? He's a big old country boy. That's all. You look at this man, his arms, there's no tone to him. His arms are just this wide, right? Just this big. He's just beat red because he's a pale ass dude and he's just stocky. He is a big ass country dude. That's all it's what he looks like.
That's the best way to put it.
And he plays like it, baby.
No, I love it. I love it. But yeah.
But anyway, man, enough about the Pro Bowl, because honestly, I don't think any of us really care about the Pro Bowl when we are looking at a Super Bowl title potentially coming back to the city of Philadelphia.
It's nice to see your guys get, rewarded and celebrated, recognized. Like you like to see it, but it absolutely means nothing. And it's absolutely a game that we hope to not see them playing in. So Yeah,
Good
I'm
point.
with you, man. It's great. It speaks to the season the Eagles are having to get that many players on that roster. But aside from that, it means nothing.
Yep. And just the fact that there were a couple guys first time, right? Hassan Reddick, first
Hey,
time Pro Bowler. Miles Sanders,
yeah,
first time Pro Bowler. Obviously, this is Landon Dickerson's first time. So that was a cool Jalen Hurts' first time. So a lot of cool things to see there. Let's get into our week 16 power ranking, Scotty, 1 through 10
yes,
here.
sir.
And I think over the last 2 weeks or so, would you agree with me that 9 and 10 are a little shaky in terms of there could be a team or two to slide into those two spots? I would say top 8 and 8 is, for me at least, is simply because of their record. They're injured, but their record is good enough. They're fighting for their division, so they have to be in the top 10. But 9 and 10 to me are newcomers. So I'll start us off here, and I'll tell you what, we do these power rankings on Thursday before the game takes place, and normally that doesn't mean much. Mine means something tonight because I'm looking forward to tomorrow when the Jacksonville Jaguars beat. Yes, I'm spoiler alert,
Oh,
everybody. The
wow.
Jacksonville Jaguars are going to beat the New York Football Jets tonight, and they will be number 10 on my top 10 power rankings because they will be coming for that AFC South Division title. The turnaround that Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence have had over the last 3 or so weeks has been incredible. When you had the come from behind win against a top 5 team that we had ranked in the Dallas Cowboys last week, it can't be understated. And like I said, they are fighting for their division right now. And real quick, obviously, I know records are similar, and it's not the Jets' fault that the Buffalo Bills sit atop of their division and the Titans sit atop of the South. But to me, there is something to be said for fighting for your division versus fighting for a 7 seed. So I think the Jags win tonight. I have them at number 10. At number 9, the Detroit Lions. Man, they're playing so well. They are almost a juggernaut on offense, right?
Yeah.
They're really good offensively. Their defense has stepped up. What are we on now, Scotty? A 6-game win streak? 6-game win streak for Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, I believe, or 6 of their last 7.
I think it was like 6 of their last 7. There's a loss
So,
mixed in
and
there
they're
somewhere.
coming. And guess what? You mentioned it earlier. The Carolina Panthers are going to get beat the F up this weekend at home by Jared Goff in this offense. I got the Lions at number 9. At number 8, like I said, this is the team that is a huge question mark to me because of their injury at their main position and lack of skill position players. The Baltimore Ravens. The record speaks for itself. They are battling injuries with Lamar Jackson, obviously, so I can't penalize them too bad. But they are, to me, of the top 8, definitive number 8. Not a lot of wiggle room in my mind to move up and get into that top 6, 7 area. At number 7, I do have the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, how sweet it was. How effing. We already broke down the game. It was incredible. But as we know, we cannot punish a team too harshly week after week for one win or one loss, no matter how funny or ironic it may be. The Cowboys are still a good team. They're still very talented. They're number 7. At number 6, a team that almost had one of the worst losses ever and turned it into one of the greatest wins ever, the Minnesota Vikings. Regardless if we think they're Super Bowl contenders or not, you look at the record, you look at the historic comeback last week, you look at Justin Jefferson, they're going to be the number 2 or 3 seed in the NFC. They're at number 6 for me.
Okay, yeah, I won't lie, the first 2 surprised me, man, because I'm wondering who you left off of here to have both of them on there.
Yeah,
I'm really wondering who it's going to be. Number 10, I got the Baltimore Ravens. They're 9-5. Yes, they are struggling offensively. The hope is that Lamar Jackson returns this week. Hopefully he can turn this offense around and get them primed for where they would like to be with this type of record before they go to the playoffs. I think regardless of if they win their division, it looks like Cincinnati's going to win the division, right? They will have a showdown later this season, but nonetheless, trending like Cincinnati's going to win the division. I still think even with them winning the division, the Baltimore Ravens can make it at this point with the way things look throughout the rest of the season. So Baltimore Ravens, they dealt with a lot, right? They've been through the ringer, and somehow they're still sitting here at 9-5. So they come in at number 10 for me. Number 9, I actually have the Miami Dolphins at 8-6. Now they've dropped 3 in a row, so this is speaking once again to potential, right, of this team and this offense specifically, who needs to bounce back this weekend. But I still do believe in them, and I think even with the loss to Buffalo, it was an impressive loss for me. They only lose by 3 in the weather that just does not fit a Miami team coming up north like that. I thought they played the Buffalo Bills pretty tough. They got the run game going with Mostert, which was impressive. Still worried about that defense, right? That's where my question marks really come into play for the Miami Dolphins. But I still have a lot of potential invested in their offense. Number 8, I have the LA Chargers at 8-6. I obviously they've been able to put a few wins together in a row here. I think Justin Herbert, once again, healthy, getting his weapons back. I think we're going to start to see the real Chargers going forward. And I'm hoping that these last few games have been signs of that. Number 7, I got the Minnesota Vikings. Went down 33-0 to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't want to see that, but at the same time, they were able to pull off one of the biggest comebacks ever. So you got to give them props at the same time as discrediting them for that. Win is a win nonetheless. And they've been winning games like that all season, quite honestly. So you can never count the Vikings out. And then number 6, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Like you said, I don't think I'm going to, penalize them too much for one loss. It was a big loss in a big spot. And don't let them lose this weekend, man. Don't let them lose this weekend because they might free fall. They might free fall, my man. But no, I got the Cowboys here at number 6. They're 10-4. Have them over the Vikings just because they did slaughter the Vikings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I still take that into effect, but Dallas at number 6 for me there to round out
the head-to-head matchup is a great point, especially if you have the two teams back to back like both of us do. I guess just recency bias took over for me for a second. One team wins, one team's coming off of an historic comeback versus an epic collapse, right? So that's the way I look at those two right now. At number 5, I feel like you know what two teams I left off just because of who the top 5 have to be at this point. So we can discuss that in a couple minutes. But at number 5, I do have the San Francisco 49ers. The top 5 is so jumbled right now. Any which team has the chance. These are the 5 teams that I think can legitimately win the Super Bowl. So like San Fran at 5 can jump all the way to 1. They could be the best team in football week to week. I do not know, but with Brock Purdy as your quarterback, I know you are a little outraged with all of the Purdy optimist right now, but that defense is legit. CMC's finding a bigger role there. Kittle looks good. Debo is not done for the year. He could return in 2 weeks or so. So I do have the Niners at 5. At number 4, I do have the Buffalo Bills. You mentioned that Miami game. The Bills did come off on top on that game. Josh Allen protecting, being a little more careful with the football right now. Stephon Diggs, that defense is playing better. So I have the Bills at number 4. At number 3, I got the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is only because at number 2, I had the Kansas City Chiefs, and I did see the top of your power rankings, and I'm not totally disagreeing. I just think as Eagles fans, when we come on here and we analyze week to week, and I praise, survival and just finding a way to win, I know it should not have taken overtime in Houston to get that W, but the Chiefs did find a way to win. So I can't knock them down my order because they did not lose. So I have the Bengals 3, Chiefs 2, very interchangeable right there. And at number 1, the best team in football, the deepest team in football, the team that continues to put W's in the win column, that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, I know Jalen Hurts is hurt. I don't know why national media and social media has taken this injury to another level. Like they're talking about the Eagles' chances in the NFC. Like you guys did read the report, right? Like you do know it's at max 2 games, probably only going to miss this game if they lose. If they win, you could see him continue to rest the regular season. But if they were to lose this game, he's most likely going to play at home against New Orleans next week. So I don't know why people are running with this story as if, he's out for 2 months and the Eagles' playoff hopes are dwindled down to Gardner Minshew, right? So whatever. He'll be fine. The Eagles will be fine. And like you said, don't let that happen this Saturday. Dude. Don't let that happen, brother.
No, don't let that happen. That's going to be a conversation for Saturday for sure. But San Fran is my number 5, just like you. I agree there. You look at them; they got the best defense, arguably. I'm not going to go and keep saying that when not all the numbers point to that. So they have
That's
one
true.
of the best defenses in the NFL. I'll give them their respect there. They have one of the more physical defenses.
Yeah, I was
going
to say, they're the nastiest defense.
Yeah, we can give them that.
Most
we can
aggressive.
Give them
that.
Yeah, I can give them that. Physical, aggressive, nasty. But I don't know if they're the best. But nonetheless, they're in that top 2 category. I would give them as far as the San Fran. The question mark for me is Brock Purdy. And when you say question mark, they're still the number 5 team in the NFL for me, right? So that speaks to how good the rest of the roster is. We still need to see Deebo Samuel come back, him play, actually be healthy, right? Because he's a guy that plays physical. Who knows? Maybe his ankle gets tweaked and all of a sudden he's out again, right? We don't know what type of injury that is. But nonetheless, they played tough without Deebo. They played tough without Jimmy G. Brock Purdy has done nothing but show signs of positivity, right? Trending in the right direction. I still just I don't believe it just yet. I feel like he has not been put into a tough situation yet. But maybe just maybe you won't be put into one when you're on the 49ers and you have that defense. Maybe that's what's happening. Nonetheless, number 4, I do have the Kansas City Chiefs. I know. And I know.
No, I'm kidding.
I know. I'm reacting to a win, right? And I'm reacting negatively to a win for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's an accumulation of what I've seen over the last 2 weeks.
That's a good point.
You look at the Kansas City Chiefs; they struggled obviously with Houston. They went into overtime, but even before that, they almost blew a big lead to the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson led Denver Broncos. That, let's be honest, man, they shouldn't be scoring upwards of 20 points on your defense if you're a contender. And that's the main thing with Kansas City. I know I'm talking about the Tractors. They still have Patrick Mahomes, that offense. They have the number 1 scoring offense, number 1 passing offense. But that defense is so suspect. I'm so worried about that. When it comes to playoffs, you look at Buffalo, they're leading the way as far as getting home field advantage throughout. But it is, at the end of the day, they're number 4. It's not that big of a dismissal. When you look at who's above them, I have Buffalo at number 3. The defense, I just like what Buffalo's doing right now. I think their defense is more sturdy. Mm-hmm. Their running offense, their rushing offense is a little bit more stable than the Kansas City Chiefs. And Josh Allen, while he's not a Patrick Mahomes, we've both agreed on that this season. He can certainly get the job done. Yeah. And then Cincinnati, they just keep impressing me, right? They're on one of the longest win streaks in the NFL. I won't say they are on the longest. I think they're on a 6-game winning streak right now to get where they're at 10-4, 5 or 6. So the main thing for me is how that defense locked down. I know it's Tom Brady. They've been struggling. They were up 17-0 in that game against Cincinnati. Flipped a switch in the second half. Joe Burrow flipped a switch in the second half. The offense got activated. And they've looked like the defending AFC champions over the last few weeks. And that's just where I'm at. It's not even really the offense. I would say Kansas City has a better offense, right, than the Cincinnati Bengals. It's that defense. They're just – not only are they, physical, nasty in a sense like the 49ers, they're turnover happy as well. They get a ton of turnovers, and that they put switch the flip. You're messing with my head, Abe. No, but that defense, they're very opportunistic, I would say. Number 1, obviously the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm with you, man. They're talking crazy. It's like Jalen Hurts has been marked as out for season or something. That's not the case. He's maybe back in a week, maybe back in 2, whatever we need him for. I'm sure he'll be out there. But you look at this team, it's the most well-balanced team in the NFL. You could say the 49ers have a better defense than us, and that's fine. I'll give them that, right? But in reality, the Eagles have the number 1 passing defense. They're number 1 in turnovers. They're number 1 in sacks, leading the NFL. So a lot points to them being the best defensive team in the NFL. But I'll give it to the 49ers. Their rushing defense is better. Maybe they're a lot closer in the other areas, and maybe they do have the best
I think they're two very different defenses stylistically. I think that San Fran, in terms of run defense, is on another level than the Eagles. And I think
Yeah.
that San Fran will take your head off if you come across the middle of the field and they're quick to the ball and everything like that. I think the Eagles are opportunistic on defense. I think the Eagles pass rush has figured things out. So they do things, they operate on different levels and in different ways.
In a more
For those
subtle
two.
way, I feel the Eagles
Yeah.
operate. They operate in a little less in your face
Yeah.
type of way, I guess you would say. But the separation comes on offense, and you have to ask yourself, Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts, because
Yep.
the weapons are equal, right? The weapons are equal. We have a 1K rusher in our backfield in Miles Sanders. We have a 1K wide receiver on the outside in AJ Brown.
Almost
we have
two.
a guy in the middle, almost two. I'm pretty sure they're going to make sure Devontae Smith gets to that 1,000-yard mark over these last 3 games. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have 2 1K wide receivers. We're going to have Dallas Goedert back in the if you want to go offense to offense, I'm going to give it to Philadelphia because of the quarterback position. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I would take it
Number
even
one
a step
team.
further. Again, the offenses operate more similarly than the defenses do, meaning that obviously we know the Eagles can run the ball down your throat, and obviously Kyle Shanahan and that San Fran run game is dangerous at times, but they're totally different styles of running the ball. Shanahan wants to use a fullback and get you in the eye with an extra tight end and blah blah blah. We're coming out of the gun. We're hitting you with the read option, the RPO, all that stuff. So I got to get one thing off my chest since we just were talking Eagles at the number 1 spot in our power rankings, as they should be everybody's. Whether it's national media, whether it's people in our own fan base, I need the overreactions to calm down. The fear that I've heard on Sport Talk Radio, the ridiculous titles I've seen on SportsCenter or YouTube from content creators or national media of like, do you guys think Jalen Hurts or not? Do you guys think this team just went 13-1 and they're really going to lose the final 3 games of the season? Like, do you think that's coming? Because Scott, like, dude, I listened to a caller calling the WIP earlier, and some of the hosts were agreeing with him, screaming his head off that Jalen Hurts needs to play. 90% of Jalen Hurts this week is better than 100% of Gardner Minshew. Get that number 1 seed locked up, because the next 2 weeks, like, again, I know we need to take it week by week and just look at the job ahead, but take in totality of the season. Do you honestly believe in your heart that the best team in football that's 13-1 is just suddenly going to lose the final 3 games of the season in an epic collapse and not secure the number 1 seed? Is that, like, do you guys think that's a possibility? Can I tell you something? You know how I give the Packers a 0% chance of making the playoffs? Can I give you a number, Scotty? There is a 0% chance that the Eagles lose all 3. Whether it's Gardner Minshew or Jalen Hurts, they are not losing the last 3 games of the season. People need to effing relax, man. Let the kid get healthy. Let him rest. It is his throwing shoulder, right? So, like, I get it. He threw a dot to AJ Brown after the hit. I don't care. That's adrenaline. Let him rest up. Let him get healthy and get ready for the playoffs. If they beat Dallas this week somehow with Minshew, I don't know what your opinion is, but do you rest him the final 2 weeks? Because then there is the conversation of, rest him the last 2 weeks, so no injury, but you're talking about almost a month of football with no game action if you rest him the last 2 games as well.
If they win that game on Saturday, and my God, I think they have a lot better chance than what people think they do.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, Dylan. We'll obviously talk about. I'm excited to talk about it, obviously. But nonetheless, if they win that game on Saturday, I think you give him, if he can go, if he's 100% by next
I'd give him a
weekend for
quarter.
the New Orleans Saints. You give him a quarter, a half, maybe, right?
Yeah.
To just get some flow back and make sure the offense.
Maybe
is
against the Giants, I
how
give
it
him a
should
drive
be.
or 2.
Yeah, maybe a drive or 2. Keep him fresh, right?
Yeah.
Keep him still active, but after the first drive or 2, get him off the field. We don't need him getting hurt further. Don't need him getting
and no
RPOs,
no read options.
Just straight up run it with Miles, right? You don't need any of that in the final 3 weeks. But go ahead and get this win on Saturday, then we can talk about that. But if it comes down to it, I think if we lose on Saturday and now the sky's falling because Lord knows everybody will overreact to the Eagles losing with their backup quarterback. But nonetheless, next week, Jalen Hurts, maybe he does play against the New Orleans Saints. Maybe he is able to go. Maybe they just didn't want to risk it. First week, it's a short week after the injury, right?
Great point.
And he can go. I think we can beat the New Orleans Saints without without Jalen Hurts. I think we can beat the Saints with Gardner Minshew. So, at the end of the day, I'm not panicking.
People do realize the Saints have played all year with Andy effing Dalton.
Andy
correct?
Dalton and Taysom Hill.
Can I tell you something?
They would die for Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I'd rather have Gardner Minshew. So what the quarterback I would rather have, check, and the number one team in football versus a 4 or 5 win team roster in football. Check.
Exactly, man.
And we're worried all of a sudden. At home in Philadelphia.
In Philly.
We're worried all of a sudden.
And
then if all else fails, you get the Giants at home. Because that's what the caller was saying. He was saying if you lose this week, the last 2 games you play, both teams are fighting to make the playoffs. They're going to give you everything they got. Guess what, bud? If they lose this week, we're fighting for the number 1 seed too. I don't know what the mindset of some people is so outlandish when it comes to this Eagles team.
I'm so ready for the playoffs to be here. I'm just so ready to get it on. Let's go ahead and see these teams fight, and we'll see who the frauds are, right? I'm ready to get it on. I'm tired of talking and defending the number 1 team in football that leads in almost every statistic in football as a team unit, right? It's just getting annoying at this point that we still have these question marks surrounding our team. For what? We've answered all the questions all season, but no, I get it. We'll need to answer the door in the playoffs, and that's why I can't wait, man.
Yeah, man. Another team we brought up, and I think you bring up a great point when you analyze and you give me your explanation for why the Chiefs are your number 4 team and not your number 2 team right now. Because I really didn't take into consideration what happened 2 weeks ago versus the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson and then Brett Ripien, whatever the hell his name is. So it is an interesting point. And you bring up the defense, right? Russ and that offense score 28 somehow on the Chiefs. They almost come back. I can't wait to see the Chiefs in the postseason and see this side of Patty. And here's why. I
feel that.
Even when the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl the following year, and you look at the Buffalo game, and you look at the Deshaun Watson Texans game, and the Tennessee Titans the week after that in the postseason, or the week before that in the postseason. Remember the year they won the Super Bowl? They were trailing by 10 or 17 in every game. They were down 24-3 or 24-0 against the Texans. Yeah. But what was the difference? The explosiveness of the offense. They don't have that. Now they have the best quarterback in the game with the best head coach and play caller. Right. They have the best tight end in the game by far. They have guys. My question is, you bring up that defense, and if this team goes down 17-0 early in the second quarter, is the explosiveness there to come back, bang, 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 and it's 21-17 before you blink your effing eyes, because that's what they had going for them before. So the key to me with Kansas City going forward is not falling in that hole, because we know Patty in this offense is explosive enough to win you a bunch of games. But if you play Josh Allen, if you play Joe Burrow, if you play Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and you're down 2-3 possessions to start the game, I don't know if they have that in them to come back in the blink of an eye. And do you trust their defense really to have their offense drag it out, right? They can obviously come back, but what does that take? That takes stops. That takes patience. And is that defense going to give up 17 early and then hold the line the rest of the game for the offense to come back? I highly would doubt that against an explosive offense. So Kansas City, to me, I'm sticking with them at 2 because of my belief in Patty. But there's definitely question marks in where they stand in the AFC, dude.
Yeah, and I think that's, the main reason that I have KC behind Cincinnati and Buffalo. It's got nothing to do with Patrick Mahomes. And, my goodness, if the Buffalo Bills didn't have the guys right behind Patrick Mahomes as far as top quality quarterbacks in the NFL, then they wouldn't be above them. But that defense is the separation. The other defenses, they're just more sturdy, right? You trust them way more when it comes down to the end of games.
Right.
All of those types of situations. If Buffalo gets down 17-0, yeah, I would believe if you told me they're going to come back and win that game. And same thing with Cincinnati. We just watched it happen against the Bucks, but I don't know. Those are going to be the kryptonite teams for Kansas City in the playoffs. It's just, can Patrick Mahomes be Superman enough to get through those teams? Because we've seen it with Cincinnati. Buffalo has a similar template. I just don't know if Josh Allen has those stones like Joe Burrow in the clutch moments of the game.
I like that point.
That's the difference
because
that
I was just
right?
about to tell you, Cincinnati remains the biggest threat to repeat and knock off Kansas City more so than Buffalo does. So I get your point about both defenses being better than Kansas City's. Now flip to the offense. What's the difference maker? So we know Patty is above the other two. Maybe not by a lot. Maybe this much, right? If I take Kansas City's offensive weapons and I look at Buffalo's, they're not all that different, right? I got Travis Kelce, you got Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I really don't care about Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox and Devin Singletary, right? And they have to bring back Cole Beasley, right? They got Juju. So those weapons aren't bad. The difference with Cincinnati,
like Juju or Gabe Davis,
right?
Probably going Juju this season, right? He's been more consistent.
The difference with Cincinnati is you're talking stud, really good slot receiver,
stud,
2 good running backs, and the quarterback drop off isn't that great. And this quarterback owns the Chiefs at the moment. So to me, Cincinnati is the biggest threat to Kansas City in the AFC, more so than Josh Allen and the Bills are. I don't know if that's crazy for people to think, but I'll tell you, if I have to be honest, Scotty, I'll tell you the matchup I would really like to see is Miami and Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. I actually wanted to say that to you when you said them. I totally forgot. But yes, because absolutely want to see that.
Both defenses are a concern. They have their flaws, right? You got the Tyreek Hill revenge, but then the offenses. Now it's Patty, Tua, but you're talking Waddle, Cheetah, bridges that gap. Can Kansas City stop them? Can Miami? So that game to me would be fun while Burrow and Allen duel it out and then see what you go from there. 110%, dude. People try to tell me in the fantasy football world and before the season started that Gabe Davis is going to have a breakout season. This is harsh. He stinks. He has one game every 7 weeks where he looks really good. He might catch 2 touchdowns. One of them might be a 78-yarder. Other than that, I feel like this dude's 3 catches for 22 yards, 2 catches for 11 yards. Like, I just miss me with the Gabe Davis talk, dude.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I was about halfway on the Gabe train at the beginning of the season. I just didn't know. I knew he could be solid, right? He's a solid receiver, but he doesn't have like
everybody
the wow factor,
watched.
Right?
Everybody watched that divisional game and tried to take it to another level. Can you imagine what he's going to be like in another year with Josh Allen? He stinks. He is an okay number 2 in this league.
Behind Stephon Diggs, right? No, it'll be interesting because, you know, I don't know. I look at these teams as well, and I'm just thinking, like, who needs the home field advantage the most out of these 3 teams? You know, out of Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. And I feel like Cincinnati needs it the least.
Yeah.
Right?
Here's what I'll say. I think Buffalo needs it the most because I don't trust them to walk into Arrowhead and get that job done.
Yeah.
Then I think Kansas City needs it because at the same time, like I think Kansas City and Buffalo are that duel that go back and forth because I think I don't think either can walk into the opponent's building and win that.
Exactly.
Game. I think Buffalo
like can Kansas City
walk in wins at home
and play at the level that the Dolphins did in a snow flurry, right? Like can they go into that and win that game? No, I feel you. I think Cincinnati. It's weird. So does that make Cincinnati are they the best team in the AFC? Like, you know what I mean? Like if they don't need home field advantage, if they don't need this, they can go anywhere and win. They're the team, right?
Yeah, they're playing like the best team at the moment too. Speaking of 2 AFC teams, that have playoff implications. Let's look at tonight's ball game, Scotty, because this one, fun, potentially sloppy. We got 3 best bets to give away. We'll see how we do tonight for you guys, but weather pending on these, right? So we'll explain why as we get into this one. But first glance, man, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, and this Jacksonville Jaguars offensive team come in scorching hot. This offense, Trevor Lawrence throwing for 350. It feels like every other week. They knock off the Cowboys last week at home after getting down 17 early. Like I said, they are fighting for that AFC South Division title, and they're right there now. Are they tied record wise? Or they're 1 game behind Tennessee still?
Let me double check for you.
But obviously now Ryan Tannehill is out for the Titans.
They're 1 game
in
behind.
free fall. I honestly think that their road starts tonight. And I think Jacksonville is in play for that division title. While the Jets bring back Zach Wilson. He started last week. He's starting again tonight because Mike White is injured. They're at home and they're fighting for a wild card, right? They might be number 3 or 4 in their division at the moment, but they can still get to that 6th or 7th seed in the AFC wild card spot. So first glance, man, what do you like here?
It's interesting. The first thing that sticks out to me is the line, right? And right now I'm looking on ESPN. It's moved anywhere from New York Jets -1 to I see it on ESPN now as -2.5. It's interesting to me, right? I get the Jags are on the road, but these teams are going in 2 different directions right now. The Jets have lost 3 in a row. The Jags have won 3 of their last 4. They were able to beat the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, I just don't understand that spread, but obviously the weather factors in. The Jets defense, I know that's been very sturdy this year, and I do believe in the Jets defense, but I just think in a game like this, something's got to give at some point with the offenses, and you're looking at Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, who do I trust in this game? Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson? And it's an easy decision for me. Now, we're looking at the number 1 and number 2 picks in their respective draft, right, going head-to-head. I think that even makes more of a case for Trevor Lawrence to go out there and perform well against the Jets, aside from the extra motivation of winning your own division and taking the Jags to the playoffs. Like, that would be such a huge accomplishment for them. And it would be the same for the Jets. I just think they're not in a great position right now, right? You saw Zach Wilson. He was able to throw for over 300 yards last week against the Detroit Lions. You still only got 17 points out of that. So, like, that doesn't – it's not – he can have a good game and they can still only score under 20. And I think that we've seen from the Jags offense is that they can be very explosive. I get the weather. It makes it a little messier, right? Makes it a little bit more scary. But I still think it's enough for me to love that +2.5 spread for the Jags, right? Like, I still feel the Jags will ultimately win this game, even if it is messy and favors the Jets. For the weather perspective, I still think the Jags have enough to beat them there.
2 things. You talk about this head-to-head quarterback matchup, former number 1 and 2 picks. I look at 2 things here with 2 things you just brought up. A, their draft order. Take it personally. Trevor Lawrence. Here's the thing. I trust Trevor Lawrence to take it personally. I trust Trevor Lawrence to take that in a positive manner. Zach Wilson, with his track record, I can see trying to do 1,000 times too much tonight with his arm and his legs and extending plays. And I don't know if that works in his and the Jets' favor. And you mentioned the weather. I'm not sold it benefits New York.
Yeah.
And here's why. Which quarterback with windy conditions and a slippery football do I trust to take care of the football more? Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson? Now, unless these 2 teams are coming out and they're going man-to-man and saying, here, we're each running 42 times tonight, that might benefit the Jets. I don't think the weather is going to be that much of a factor. This isn't a fog bowl or the snow bowl where, they're only throwing the ball 7 times. You know what I mean?
And Dylan, we know Doug Peterson, right? Like the season's on the line. Like there is no holding back tonight. Weather, whatever may come into factor, there's no holding back tonight for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Doug Peterson, who we know, he's not afraid to take risks. He's not afraid to trust his quarterback. We saw it for years here, and it almost burned us several times, right? Where he didn't fall in love with the run and run the football when he was supposed to. I don't think it's a bad thing tonight, though, when you have a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence who's ascending. And I get it. The Jets defense is really good. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, the opposite corner, they're very good. But this Jags offense has a lot of weapons. You got ETN coming out of the backfield. Evan Ingram has came on the scene. Zay Jones has proven to be a solid wide receiver too, right? Christian Kirk has done his thing all season, showed why he's worth those big money bags, right? Exactly. He's came on the scene the last few weeks. So like this team has weapons. They have a lot of ways they can attack this Jets defense. And I think tonight, you look at this, it's kind of everything coming at Zach Wilson all at once. You mentioned it's Trevor Lawrence. It's a guy drafted right ahead of you. You want to prove that you should be a starting quarterback in the NFL first. That's the real test here because he's playing for his career, right? If Mike White was healthy tonight, Zach Wilson wouldn't see the field, right? Like that's crazy as a number 2 pick that in one of the biggest games of the season, do or die, you would be on the bench and Mike White, whatever round he was drafted in, would be starting over you. It's crazy. And I think it ultimately ends up being too much for Zach Wilson, as it has been his entire career, right? Like that's the way I'm looking at this.
I agree 110%, man. That's why I'm with you with this Jags selection tonight. I love them plus 2.5, and I actually like them to win this game outright. Yeah. Before we get to our best bets, I do have 2 fantasy questions for you. I am in the fantasy championship in one of my leagues. I'm in the playoffs just started in another league. But for the championship league, I got decisions to make, and they start tonight. Okay, so I know where you're leaning. We already joked around earlier about the one thing being Travis Etienne. Do I play him tonight? No Quinnen Williams for the Jets. The weather, blah, blah, blah. The problem, Scotty, is if I don't play Travis Etienne tonight, my option is Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara on the road versus Cleveland has not done much. Taysom Hill takes carries away from him. Somehow Jawan Johnson has 2 tutties every game. I've not loved what I've gotten out of Kamara. I think ETN has the bigger play ability. Even if the Jets are a top 4 run defense, there's all I need is one, right? And here's another thing. I'm a distance league. So the further the touchdown, the more bonus points I get. Yeah. So it's not 6 points per touchdown. So
I would go ETN easily in that. And earlier, I was just saying under 72 rushing yards.
Oh,
that doesn't mean he's getting strapped up. He could have 60 rushing yards and 50 receiving yards because that's the type of player ETN is. But ultimately, I would roll with him. I think he's going to be used heavily tonight because of the weather conditions. I think he's going to be used even more, especially in the passing game. So, I would go ETN on that one.
And then another dilemma. I really don't want to have 2 players in this game. I don't want to have 2 Jags in this weather. Mark Andrews or Evan Ingram. No Lamar Jackson. He was already ruled out today versus Atlanta. Without Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews' production has been... And Ingram 2 weeks ago had 168 yards for 2 touchdowns. Last week, he didn't do much, but he either scored or had 60-some receiving yards. So I think he scored like 7 or 8 last week. Andrew scored 2. So it's like, do I take the risk with rolling 2 guys tonight in this weather? Or do I take the risk of going with Andrews till the ship goes down?
Everything you're telling me says lean Ingram, right?
Right.
What I would do, I would ultimately lean Ingram in that situation, but I would look at what Atlanta has done against tight ends. Just because Mark Andrews, when he is playing, he is the number 1 option in that offense. Only 2 points, like they got to make a case to get him the ball. But I don't know. I would lean Ingram just off what you just told me, basically.
So here's the thing. In the last couple of weeks, in the last 4 games, he has had no more than 53 yards. He had 50 yards, 53 yards, 17 yards, and 31 yards. He has not scored since October 16th. So is he due?
I know. That's why
I did
it's
not
dangerous.
like what I seen out of Huntley last week. Does Harbaugh run the football? And then reversely, let's see, Evan Ingram. He had 4 for 20. No, that's week 1. He had 8 for 62 last week. The week before that, he had 11 for 162 and 2 touchdowns. The week before that, he had 5 for 30 and a touchdown. But he's also had, against the Ravens, 1 catch, 4 yards, 3 catches, 14 yards versus the Chiefs. So but if we're talking trends, he's trending this way. Andrews is plummeting.
Yeah.
Which trend breaks ultimately is what I have to figure out. And I have about 2 hours to do so.
I know. And I'm just looking at the Falcons numbers just to see what they're looking like as far as how many points, they generally give up. Because the thing that makes Mark Andrews dangerous is like when he goes off, right?
Yeah.
Like if he goes
2
off
touchdowns.
this weekend, has a bounce back game, it's going to be 2 touchdowns and 50 plus receiving yards in the game. So it's like, it's really dangerous, especially playing the Falcons, like not a very good team at home. It's tough, man. It's tough. I don't want to make a decision for you and then you lose, man, because that's a tough one for sure.
Well, the Falcons have given up 1 touchdown to tight ends this year.
1.
They've given up, let's see. Or I'm sorry, hold on. This doesn't make any sense. Or no, they've given up 4. Okay, they gave up 2 last week. I don't know why there's a rushing statistic. Did the Saints have a rushing? I don't know. They've given up 4 touchdowns to tight ends this year, and they give up.
Taysom Hill could have rushed for 1 on the Saints. Him being a
that actually, you know what? That's definitely what that number is. Then, yep.
Yeah.
So they average 7.43 fantasy points against from the tight end position.
And it's like bad weather, similar to the running back, the tight end could be that safety valve tonight too, man.
Yeah, and you know what? I keep going back to? The game-winning touchdown for the Lions last week. Who was it to? A tight end.
Who? Yeah. Was it CJ?
No,
that was
no.
It was Wayne.
Yeah,
I think it was Wainwright, actually.
Yeah, like slipped it under to him. So I'm leaning Ingram right now, honestly, but I'll have to think about it over the next hour.
Yeah, trust your gut, man. That's all I'll say about it. I do see on these. Let me see here. They still got Mark Andrews ranked as the number 2 tight end. I don't know. That's tough, man.
I'll promise you one thing. One way or the other, I'm getting bit in the ass.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Either way.
If I sit Ingram tonight, he's scoring and going for 75. If I play him and sit Andrews for the first time since his bye week, Andrews is scoring 2 tutties. So whatever, I'll have to roll with it. Let's get into our best bets here. Enough wasting the people's time with my fantasy football concerns. Our best bets for tonight. Now, I know you're going to look at the top one and question it. Okay, here's the thing. We have over 36.5 at -110 on DraftKings Sportsbook. This number has hit in every single Jacksonville Jaguar game going back to week 5. And most of which by a large margin. They're involved in 50, 60, 65 point games. I know the Jets defense is real. I know the weather should probably lean under. I still have a feeling this at least gets to 37 tonight. 20-17 is not a lot to ask for. 21-17 is not a lot to ask for, even in bad weather. Could be slippery conditions, missed tackles. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sticking with the over in this game, Scotty.
And from the other side, even from the Jets' perspective, as good as their defense has been, they've hit over 37 in 10 out of their 14 games so far. Yeah. So it's really not a stretch. I get it. No. The weather, Jets defense, a high pressure game. But I still think, like you said, 21-17, 20-17 was the score for the Jets last week when they lost to the Lions.
It's a great
point. I don't see why they can't get to a score like that.
Secondly, Jags plus 2.5. I mean, to me, maybe we're totally off base here. This is the lock of the best bets here tonight. I like Jags outright to win this one, but if you're going to give me 2.5, I'm going to take 2.5 for that price. I like the Jags spread tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
And see, with that on the other side, a lot of the talk has been that the Jags are going to jag, right? The Jaguars are going to just do the typical Jaguar thing and blow their opportunity. Why isn't it the same thing for the New York Jets and Zach Wilson? The Jets are going to jet, and they've jetted for the last 3 weeks of losing. So, yeah, I'm with you here on the plus 2.5 Jags.
And then lastly, we wanted to give out a player prop. There's a couple different routes you could go. You could look Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson passing yards. Travis Etienne over 14.5 passing yards. Receiving yards is an interesting number. Garrett Wilson over 52.5 receiving yards is an interesting number. Ultimately, we came to the conclusion that CJ Uzomah over 9.5 receiving yards at -110 is our best player prop of the night. This number has hit in all but 2 of games that CJ Uzomah has played in this year, whether that be with Zach Wilson or not. Obviously, last week he even scored a touchdown. So I like CJ Uzomah. This is potentially one catch at this point.
You mentioned two touchdowns last week.
Yeah, you mentioned in a game like this with weather, tight ends could be a safety valve tonight, middle of the field. Maybe he gets 2 catches for 11 yards. That does not matter. Over 9.5 yards on DraftKings at -110 for CJ Uzomah. And if you parlay them together, you'll probably find yourself with an okay payday there as well. Scotty, anything else for tonight?
Just outside of the NFL, the Wizards are playing. I've been smashing Kyle Kuzma over on threes. He's sitting at 2.5 with FanDuel. It's plus money. I smashed him for 5 threes earlier this week. So I'm riding the Kuz train.
I like it, man. I like it. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up this Thursday edition of NFL Turf Talk. We will not be live this Sunday. Why, Scotty? Because Santa Claus is coming to town. So we will be live Saturday morning at 11 a.m. here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you're new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. You can check out the link tree in our bio. Every platform we're on is there. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, whatever you got to do. Have a great holiday weekend, and we will be back with you Saturday.
See you Saturday. Go.
One-on-one.